Hello my dear friends, you're on the Military Summary channel, and this short video we're going to discuss the most important events that took place during the previous night of the local time. And first we're going to start with Kherson direction. Today we got a lot of very interesting details and geolocations from this territory. The most important update is coming from the northern part of Kherson district. The Russians managed to discover the Ukrainian position, and as a result of strike, the Russians destroyed the concentration of Ukrainian forces. Some sources are saying that the Russians were using Iskander missile. Other sources are saying that the Russians were using Tornado S system, the system that the Russians were using to attack the Ukrainian trains with equipment and so on. Other sources are saying that the Russians were using FAB 500 or 1500. As you can see, after that strike, the Ukrainians took a decision to leave the territory and they entered the forest in this area through line, trying to hide themselves because they expect more attack from the Russian side. Few minutes later, the Russians, as soon as the Russians realized and pointed another Ukrainian concentration of forces, they made another strike, also using the same type of weapon. One more time, it's very difficult to understand what kind of weapon the Russians were using, but probably this is the Tornado S system and missile. We haven't received any numbers and details regarding the losses of Ukrainian forces, but obviously there were a significant number of wounded and killed soldiers among the Ukrainian personnel. More details are coming from Kherson city and Kherson area. The Russians continue hunting the Ukrainian forces, to be more precise, the Ukrainian boats along the Dnieper River, trying to prevent the landing operation. As a result of another strike, as a result of another activity in this area, the Russians managed to discover the Ukrainian boat, and as a result of FPV and drone strike, that boat was destroyed. The Ukrainians continued their preparation of possible offensive operation and or landing operation in Kinburn Spit. Today they publish a very rare footage, very rare scene from the city by the name of Geroyska. To tell the truth, we haven't received nothing from this territory since the beginning of the special military operation, almost from the city. And as a result of FPV drone strike, the Ukrainians managed first of all to discover and then to destroy the Russian radar and camera in this area that the Russians were using to control the situation on the opposite shore of this Dnieper estuary. Very interesting details and updates are coming from the area of Novomikhailivka, and we will skip at least Zaporozhye and Vremivka, then we will turn back, but more interesting details are coming from the area of Novomikhailivka, and to tell the truth, very interesting updates. First of all, the Russians continue bombing and attacking the city with the usage of FAB 500 and FAB 1500. During the previous night and this morning, the Russians launched at least 4 bombs in this area. As a result of those strikes, as I understand, the Russians managed to deal another significant damage to the Ukrainian forces in the city. Obviously, we understand that the city is ready to be stormed and assaulted by the Russian infantry. The only question we have, why the Russians haven't started this offensive operation yet. And as I understand, today the Ukrainians published us the answer why the Russians haven't started any offensive operation in direction of Novomikhailivka. Of course, we understand. After the Russians launch offensive operation in direction of, before the Russians launch offensive operation over Mikhailivka, first of all, they need to do one thing, to demine the fields in this area. So all these fields are completely mined by the Ukrainian forces. We understand this. The same story we can see on the northern part, but the Russians, using the tanks and using the tanks with demining equipment, have already managed to clear some fields in this area. According to the geolocations we have, at least this part of the fields is already demined, and currently the Russians try to storm this area to get as close as possible to the Ukrainian positions that located on the north of Novomikhailivka. The question was, and the question is, why the Russians haven't started the mining process on the south. And the answer to this question is also simple. Ukrainian sources published the video from the city by the name of Berezova. On this video, we see how the Russians try to hide their demining equipment, Zmei Gorynich. So this is like demining equipment with distance method. The Ukrainians managed to discover the Russian demining equipment that the Russians were trying to hide among the tree line. And as a result of HIMARS strike, both machines were destroyed. At least when talking about the video, two machines were hiding in this area, and the strike of HIMARS took place a little bit to the right from the main positions of those type of weapon. But we understand that HIMARS is a very powerful weapon, and obviously as a result of that strike, the Russian equipment was damaged and probably destroyed. Later, the Ukrainians published more details. There are like 2 points of possible of this equipment, and as we can see, this equipment probably was destroyed. So this is the reason why the Russians still haven't launched offensive operation, because they have already brought the demining equipment, but the Ukrainians managed to discover this type of weapon and destroy it. So that's why the Ukrainians managed to break the Russians' plans to start offensive operation from themselves. Basically, they haven't broke these plans completely, but they managed to win some time. So now the Russians need to bring more equipment and to start everything from the beginning. So anyway, this event, this episode tell us that soon the final storm of the city is going to start. Maybe not today, not tomorrow, but obviously very soon as the Russians are able to demine this territory and to launch offensive operation. Now we are going to return back to the Zaporozhye area. Today we got some details and geolocations from this area that confirms some positions and that confirms the combat line. The Ukrainians published the video how they were attacking and bombing the Russian forces and Russian positions using FPV drones in the vicinity of Novoprokopovka. All these videos are geolocated, and this confirms that the Russians control the Novoprokopovka and that the Ukrainians haven't entered the city, and just to confirm the positions. And the Russians published the video as well how they were using their own FPV drones and were attacking the Ukrainian forces and Ukrainian positions along these 3 lines, also somewhere in the vicinity of the same settlement. So these 2 videos we are using just to confirm the combat line and the front line in this area. The Russians continue attacking a concentration of Ukrainian forces on the north of Kopany. On this video we see how the FPV drone platoon Babry discovered the movement and of Ukrainian light vehicle, and as a result of FPV drone strike, that light vehicle was destroyed. So this is another confirmation that Ukrainians try to concentrate forces in this area currently without support of heavy heavy tanks, just light infantry and light cars. During the previous night, the Russians bombed the fields between Verbovo and Robotyne. It was just a regular military routine to attack the Ukrainian positions with FAB, not to allow them to concentrate, just a regular thing, maybe even some preparation before counter-offensive operation from the Russian side, because some sources were saying that during the previous night the Russians made few attempts to counter-attack the Ukrainian positions, but yet we haven't received even a single geolocated video confirmation. The Ukrainians published a series of video of artillery strikes against the Russian positions along the river Mokry Yaly. As a result of those strikes, significant number of armored vehicles, tanks and artillery systems were damaged and destroyed. The only interesting update that this event took place not today, not yesterday, not even yesterday. According to the author of this video, this is the series of videos that took place somewhere in the end of September. So during the Ukrainian offensive operation in the vicinity of Novomayorskaya and Urozhaine. So we're just using this video to understand what kind of things took place during the Ukrainian offensive operation. So first of all, they tried to suppress Russian positions, and only after that they launched offensive operation. And I'll remind you that as a result of Ukrainian offensive operation to Novomayorskaya, the Ukrainians were completely defeated and were forced to step back. When talking about Bakhmut area, there are no changes on the ground, just one single video from the Ukrainian side, a single tank, lonely tank who was trying to attack the Andriivka. This is another video confirmation that tell us that Ukrainians completely lost control of Andriivka, and currently there are no forces in Andriivka, and the only thing Ukrainians can do is to send tanks and to attack the city and the railways using the distance methods of attacks with tanks, with T-72, trying to attack from hidden position. This is the only thing they can do. They are no longer able to enter the city. So according to this geolocation, I believe that we need to mark Andriivka in the gray zone as it was at least during the previous versions of this map. The Russians continue attacking the Ukrainian forces in Ivanovska using FPV drones. Significant number of light vehicles, evacuation machines were destroyed during the previous night and the previous day. So this is another tactic that the Russians use, trying to to reduce the Ukrainian logistic possibilities, and of course it plays a significant role in the entire situation of Ukrainian offensive operation in this direction. And that's it for this short video. Military Summary channel reminds you to condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for watching, subscribe to my channel, put your likes, join my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.